Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the F4L, to the icons of the F4L. I am your host, the F4L icon, Sean Jazz Stevens. And I welcome you guys to this very special show, as this has become my new favorite segment of the week. But first, before we get heavy duty into that, ladies and gentlemen, Bertram and his amazing Bat Band. Thank you, Bertram. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, we have a very special show today, as this has become my new favorite segment, really. This is where I give positive feedback and I give praise to those who honestly deserve shout-outs and then some. So, Bertram, why don't you play that cool music and let's start these things up, huh? All right, Bertram, thank you. Thank you very much for that. All right, folks, we're going to kick things off in classic fashion. That's right. Get up for Bertram. Good job. What we're going to do is, when we're done reading off these names, we're going to give a great deal of applause to all of them, if we could. And I'll explain a little bit why they're getting these praises and why they're getting these shout-outs, why they're deserving of these shout-outs. And there you go. Why not? At the end of the day. You know, a lot of people forget that they have the power of their voice, and a lot of people forget the magnitude of sometimes someone needs to hear certain words. Sometimes people need to be reinforced in how they feel, and they need to be praised for a job well done. And I know for myself, I wasn't always given those words, but I believed it because actions speak louder than words and whatnot. But I still like to give praise and respect and share awesome achievements, regardless of what they are and in various stages, whether it be sports, entertainment, or just life in general. I think everyone succeeds in something every day, and I think it's important to recognize those accomplishments, no matter what they are. Because at the end of the day, everything kind of adds up to everything we do, and speaks to what we're going to do in life. So let's kick things off with the first person. You know what? We should do a little thing for him. Hold on. Well done, Bertram. Well done. Well, this first shout-out will go to my son, is first and foremost we're going to recognize. My son, for those people who don't know, he has, of many things that he has accomplished in his young life already. And my wife and I are both proud of him, but since I am the one that has the podcast currently, I am the one who gets to sing the praises of my son publicly on air. I'm sure my wife has her people that she talks to on social media and so forth. Well, this is my little device, so let's first congratulate my awesome son, Sean Awesome, on his accomplishment. My son, for those people who don't know, he kind of fell into my my footsteps, so to speak. We all, travel through life, and we all take various stages of our employment and works and stages, right? My son, I recommended him get involved with the film industry and the film theater, to be exact, right out of high school, until he could figure out what else he wanted to do. He has also been part of an internship program. He helped develop some video games that you may or may not have heard of. He does a lot of those things. But in addition to all of that, at work, and of course, helping co-run Icons of the F4L on YouTube. So he's been doing that since he was 11. A lot of people who are 11 years old are not able to kind of book a show that pretty much will put to shame a lot of high-rating television shows. Well, in all honesty, if we were to put our show on television, we'd probably outsell a lot of those big television shows ourselves. But in general, my son, right out of high school, he decided to get involved working in a movie theater, which when I was younger, that was a good source of income that I did. Like me, he's traveled through the ranks, earned his stripes, and I'm very proud to say that he has not only been promoted now several times over, he's been given several opportunities to learn and grow. They have given him they've allowed him and given him the license to serve and proper training to go to liquor school, bartending school, and he is now a licensed bartender as well, thanks to work. He's not someone who's shy from taking opportunities when they come about. And his work ethic, much like my own, he's dependable, reliable, and responsible. And I'm very happy and proud to announce this past week he was awarded with being team leader of the month. And that might not be a big, huge thing compared to some other people, but you know what? Being someone who's had to work with the general public in that setting, and being someone who has earned to rise, the fact that my son is respected enough to be a great team leader does not surprise me. He has a great head on his shoulder. He's a very intelligent individual. He's also a very honest individual. I think, like myself, he has a very hard work ethic, and he has a warm heart. So I think these are good things to have. And apparently his employment also says this, as he's now been promoted several times over, and he is now supervisor or team lead of the month. And yes, he is a leader. He's a manager now, and he is leading his team into doing successful things. And my wife and I are very proud of him, and I hope he knows that we are, because we are. So, congratulations to my son, Sean Awesome, on his accomplishment, being promoted, and for his being awarded this amazing award, being honored by being leader of the month and so forth, of the quarter. He's doing great things. Proud of him. And in case you were wondering, yes, he's still bowling. As you guys may or may not know, me and him started bowling this year. I took a little bit of a break. I am now the backup bowler for our team. We have 5 people on our team, technically. I stepped back because, frankly, there were some people who were not nice to my team, And rather than me cause a scene, because I don't deal with such things and it doesn't bother my team, I took the high road, and I will be the stand-in for my team. So we are allowed to have a backup bowler. If someone's sick or not feeling well, then I would bowl for them. But I myself, took a back seat to that. My son is still leading the team. He is still the best bowler on the team, and holding his own there. So very proud of him for that as well. All right, let's move it on. Bertram. Awesome. Okay, that will be enough of that. Okay, so let's start acknowledging. First and foremost, let's recognize and congratulate Rider the Nation Lockwood, who just today went undefeated in his wrestling tournament that he almost wasn't doing, but surprise, he did. And Ryder has been working on his wrestling ability for quite a little while now, and he's mainly been focused on jiu-jitsu, but he added wrestling to his arsenal, or as I like to call it, his toolbox of skills. And he has absolutely crushed it. Today he went undefeated and winning yet another tournament. And we couldn't be prouder of Ryder. Congratulations to Ryder Lockwood on his accomplishment today. On the flip side of that, also, Jesse the Untamed Weller Jr. also had a very successful weekend. Jesse the Untamed one, you might just know him just as that on social media and whatnot. But let me tell you, this young man, not only is he tremendous when it comes to competing, one of the best pure strikers I've seen, he's very intense, but also he is very charismatic. What I find interesting is that he has both the skill on the mat, but also has the camera's attention, and I think that you could get a reality television show out of Jesse the Untamed Weller Jr. So congratulations to him over this weekend as well. And I guess he's going to be going to Atlantic City soon, and we wish him nothing but the best in that endeavor. I know he's going to do really well, and best of luck to him. And for those people who don't know, Jesse is one of our newest stars on Icons of the F4L. Today, he and his tag team partner came very close to capturing the Dream Masters BA MMA Grand Prix tag team titles against a very tough team. And let me tell you, they took them to the limit. And listen, just because you don't win the first time, it doesn't mean you quit. And I think it's only a matter of time until these four lock it up again and take it to the limit again, and maybe a different outcome. You never know. But if we're going to speak about MMA, youth MMA, we got to have to recognize the one who kind of started the ball rolling, and we have to recognize the red-headed terror, Anthony Demoweeks from across the pond in Liverpool. The young lad, accompanied by his on-screen tag team partner, but also his real-life training partner, Noah the Nightmare Tyndall, in his corner in real life. And Anthony Demoweeks, the red-headed terror himself, lived up to the name and dominated the performance and did a fantastic job in his tournament this weekend. Congratulations to him. Very proud of the young lad, and it's also really cool to see that people who like Noah the Nightmare Tyndall is taking these fighters who kind of look up to him, and he's taking them under their wing. They grow from his, they kind of inspire one another, and I think that's a fantastic way to look at it. And I know when I was training in martial arts, I think we always try to take time to encourage the others who are a little bit younger or the ones who are just starting out. And because the only way they're going to get better is when we take them under the wing, we help them get to where they need to be as one versus individual. So that's kind of how I look at things like that. But you know what? Speaking of up-and-coming youth MMA and future UFC champions, let's recognize Jake the Snake LeBlanc, who he and his crew showed up and did their tournament this weekend down there in Florida, I believe, and kind of dug their heels in and showed why Florida is pretty much their territory. They did a great performance here. Jake the Snake is someone who trains with the Adele Boys and several other people who you've heard I've talked about on the show. I've talked about Jake himself. I said that Jake the Snake is going to be a future UFC champion. He has intensity, he has integrity, he has a great work ethic, and he is lightning quick. And I think these are all skills that are good, but also when you surround yourself around people who have the same goals, the same mindset, who have the same focus, the same drive, the same determination, you really give yourself an opportunity to become even bigger than other people. And I really commend Jake the Snake for choosing a very wise individual to really surround himself around so many positive influences. And that also speaks to the Adele Boys, who take these people who are a little smaller than them maybe, and taking those people under their wing and showing them the way. And they're all inspiring each other, which is why that is a dominating force to be reckoned with. So I want to recognize Jake the Snake and that whole entire group over there. Whenever they talk about Florida, people in the pop culture sense make jokes about Florida. Let me tell you, when it comes to sports, there's no one going to be joking about, when it comes to the likes of the Florida sports scene, because when it comes to the uprising in the MMA world, the Adele Boys, Jake the Snake LeBlanc, and several other of their training partners there, they're all on the fast track to future UFC championships because they have that drive, that skill, and that mindset. And we wish them nothing but the best with that. Speaking of another youth MMA up-and-coming competitor, the Lionheart, as we call him, Dmitry Chernikov, and the King of Bling, Elijah Furton himself. We want to shout them out and recognize them for their hard work and dedication. When you don't think that we pay attention, don't worry about that. We pay attention, and all honesty, the results are what happens when you get on the mat and when you're doing these competitions. It's great that they have such a well-rounded kind of motive and well-rounded regiment. And these athletes have just that. So I want to recognize them for that. I also would like to recognize... Oh, by the way, congratulations also to Lights, Camera, Action Jackson Baker as another wrestling clinic done this weekend. Jackson taking names and adding to his legacy. And congratulations to him. And also another successful title defense today on Icons of the F4L, for those people who didn't miss it. Incredible. I also wanted to, speaking of, MMA and youth, future UFC champions, I had, oh my goodness, I'm lucky I have my voice somewhat back now. I had the pleasure of calling a match between Isaiah the Natural Trenya and one of our debuting characters today. All honesty, he's really not much of it. He's more of a icon from the 80s. The Jackalope is someone who made his debut tonight. Now, for those people who don't know who the Jackalope is, a little quick background real quick. And we're going to be, and when I tell you who the Jackalope is, you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that. Hopefully, if you're old enough, or if you're old like me. The Jackalope was, first and foremost, I think everyone has heard the term of the Jackalope. If you haven't, let me just kind of break it down for you. It's a mythical creature that kind of resembles, is a kind of a hodgepodge of animals. It's kind of a cross between a rabbit and okay, a rabbit with antlers. Okay, that's kind of what we're looking at for the jackalope. Looks like a jack rabbit, and it has horns like an antelope. So you have a jackalope. Now, the reason this character came about and the reason where it came from, if anyone remembers back in the 80s, there was a television show called America's Funniest People. And there was a time period when on Sunday nights, everyone would gather around the television, families, and they would watch two shows that were starting out. One was America's Funniest Home Videos with the late, great Bob Saget, today that show is still on. Now it's called America's Funniest Videos. Back then it was called America's Funniest Home Videos. I think it's called just AFV now. But regardless of where it started, right around that same time period, another show started, which starred, oddly enough, it starred Bob Saget's co-host on Full House, Dave Coulier. It was called America's Funniest People. And on America's Funniest People, which was similar to America's Funniest Home Videos, only rather than individual kinds of people, America's Funniest People was more people who did kind of odd tricks or skits or things of that nature. It was a little different than America's Funniest Home Videos, which we used to affectionately call America's Funniest Home Injuries. Because let's face it, anyone who's ever watched America's Funniest Home Videos, you know that you're the one laughing when the guy falls through the cake at the wedding. Come on. I know. I see you. All right. But anyway, the Jackalope was a segment on America's Funniest People where they had this rabbit jackalope thing as the puppet that would run around and have these antics where Dave Coulier would do the voice of this creature that would get himself involved with various things and skits. And for a while there, the jackalope became part of pop culture in the 80s and the 90s. And for those people who haven't paid attention to icons of the F4L, granted, we, for the most part, feature real-life amazing Dream Masters and Dream Warriors. But once in a while, my son and I will collaborate and kind of bring in pop culture figures that we think that people should be aware of or educate people with. Like last year, for example, we added Les Lie from You Can't Do That on Television. You Can't Do That on Television was a huge show back in the 1980s and the 70s. One of the shows that really kicked off Nickelodeon. It was a kids sketch show. I mean, I would probably refer to as Saturday Night Live for kids. It was filmed out of Canada, which at the time I didn't realize it was made in Canada. But now growing up and seeing some of the old episodes again, which is a nostalgia trip, my wife, my family, and I, we all enjoy watching You Can't Do That on Television. My wife and I, of course, grew up with it. First round, and our kids grew up with it thanks to us, because we're awesome parents. But we had Les Lie last year, but didn't really catch on anywhere. But this year we're going to go with the Jackalope, as well as Jeff Dunham and his some of his friends. Anyone who knows who Jeff Dunham is and has heard of Jeff Dunham, he's a comedian, ventriloquist, and some of his friends, as he calls them, will all have also started and have also debuted, with some more waiting to have their moment, so to speak. But the Jackalope and Isaiah the Natural Trainer had a match. Isaiah the Natural Trainer, who's a real-life Dream Master, a real-life uprising youth MMA fighter, future UFC champion, represents the United States of America. And he has a real-life fight scheduled to face the Nightmare Noah Tyndall in real life, which, again, that's a real-life fight that's going to happen, and that's something we haven't even done on Dream Masters. Isaiah, this was his second match, so this wasn't his debut. That was the Jackalopes. But I got to tell you, it was an absolute 39-minute war between Isaiah the Natural Trinity and the Jackalope in a side of a cage. I felt like it was almost never going to end. It was a great showing of intestinal fortitude, and regardless of the outcome, I think that it shows the people just how gutsy and how much integrity and how intense Isaiah the Natural Trinity is. His willpower, his no-quit attitude about him. He was destined to do big things. We still believe it's going to happen. So, regardless of that, we want to recognize him for his hard work and dedication in that field. And of course, the Nightmare Noah Tyndall acting like a champion in and out of the ring, supporting his fellow lads at various events. That's ultimately what a champion does. He elevates others around him. He's also someone who doesn't duck a challenge, also accepts all challenges. In all honesty, if you are a champion, the way you know that you are successful is when they start hunting you. If you are a champion and no one is wanting to fight you, no one's looking to get into the ring with you, there's something wrong here. Either one, the people in your area are either really afraid of you and you need to broaden your search, or two, there's got to be something. There's got to be a reason why no one wants to fight the champion. Because if you're someone who is competing in these events and you don't want to win a championship and you don't want to be the best, I don't quite frankly know why you'd be involved with it to begin with. In order to be the best, you need to face the best. And I got to say, I am very happy and proud that Isaiah and Noah are going to be fighting each other in real life, because that proves my point. That is exactly what I mean by that. If Noah is the Nightmare Tyndall is the best in the UK and Isaiah the Natural Trinity is the best in the United States, then this is going to be a war, and one that I think people should be paying attention to. It's coming up in February, from my understanding. And I got to tell you, I'm going to be completely neutral because I have so much respect for both these young men that it's going to be hard. I can't even pick a winner, honestly. They both have incredible training regimens. They're both incredible athletes, incredible willpower, great fan base. It's going to be a war, and that's a real-life thing. It's going to be great to see. In all honesty, that is exactly the kind of intensity you want to bring. And in order to be the best, you need to face the best. In the names of the people I mentioned, these are people who have either faced the best or continue to face the best every day. Jesse the Untamed, for example, Jake the Snake LeBlanc, Ryder Lockwood, Dmitry Chernikov, all of the Action Jackson Baker, Anthony Demwigs, the Redheaded Terror. Every single one of those people are absolute monsters in and off of a mat, or if they're not on a mat competing, then they're learning or they're adding to their skill. They're hitting the gym. They're working on their cardio. They're working on their core strength. They're always working hard on their goals. And guess what? That's how champions are born. That's how you stay a champion. And that's how you win championships. You have to want it more than everybody else. You have to put that work in to get there. If you want to be the best, you need to face the best. You need to work for the best. And you have to prepare for the best. If you're facing people you can beat, you're only kidding yourself. If you're facing someone that you have no problem beating, and you fought the same person 6 times, you have to start questioning yourself. Is this the best I can do, or is this just because it's familiar and I know I can beat this person? Because that doesn't mean necessarily you're the better fighter, because if you beat that same person 6 times in a row, because you've already figured out, how to beat that person. But then you go and face someone you haven't faced and you lose. What does that mean? There's a term back in the day, they used to call it a paper champion. Paper champion, or someone who people thought was a big deal, right? And every school has their star student. They have their elite fighters of every school, every dojo has their core group that they send out to represent, right? Well, if you're someone who wants to make a name for yourself, you need to be looking at that core group to challenge that core group. And what I find interesting is that there are people, even recently I've seen people who claim to be, something else, and people try to hype these people up. But in reality, they've faced people who don't have the experience they have, or they face people who are new to competing and they've had 6 fights already. That doesn't necessarily mean they're a better fighter, because they're facing these newcomers and they're facing these people who don't have the experience that they do. Because the reality is, when they face someone who is a legitimate challenge, they're going to get humbled. This happened recently. One of those very people who comes to mind, not going to mention the name, but reality steps in at that point. I had often said that people are putting too much hype into this person, and sure enough, he was humbled. People were making a big deal about this person, and I, quite frankly, being someone who has competed and being someone who has also helped get people ready for tournaments, getting them ready psychologically for competing, that's more my repertoire. I love the game of human chess. No one plays it better than me. And I think that when you approach the sport like that, that's kind of, the best way to kind of look at it, is human chess. What is your opponent going to do? How can you counter them? And what is the way you're going to get the checkmate or the win, right? I'll tell you why I started that. One of the reasons I really paid attention to that was specifically I was injured in 4th grade. I got a bad knee injury after the end of I was playing soccer or football to the world audience and at school. And the kid who I got the goal, and the kid who lost, he got upset and he clipped my knee and he blew my knee out. And I had a martial art tournament. Now I want to say something before I continue the story. I am not in any way condoning what I did, because what I did is foolish, reckless, and I continue to live with the consequences of my actions, which is why I am very much a component, why I tell people, when you have an injury, please listen to me. I know that you want to get back out there, and I know what it's like to watch all your friends and your comrades going into war and doing what you love to do. And I get that. I feel you. I do. But if you rush returning too soon, you're going to do permanent damage to yourself later in life. When you're younger, I get it. You're hungry, and you have that integrity, you have that intensity, and you're untouchable. You feel that way. But when you get to be older, your body will remind you of those choices, which is why I am here to tell you, if your doctors or someone like that says take it easy on such a thing, please listen to them. Because I was caught in a situation where I didn't have a choice. I had to compete. Competing, I was someone on a mat. I've told this story before. My dojo depended on me. My sensei depended on me. And I had a tournament the weekend that my knee got blown out by the kid at school. And I knew my knee was bad. I had a bad knee. It hurt basically he popped the knee out of the thing, really. It wasn't like really bad. He just popped it out of the joint real quick. So the nurse was able to pop it back in, which, by the way, extraordinarily painful. And I had a tournament that weekend that if I knew if I had an injury, I wouldn't be able to compete. And I needed to compete. That was who I was. That was how I needed to be. It was my sensibility and also my commitment to my dojo, to my sensei, to all of the other kids in my dojo, all of the parents of those kids in the dojo. I needed to show up, and I needed to be there. So one of the things when I talk about doing the human chess capacity is even before that I was starting that, but I really had to pay attention to what everyone else was doing, and I had to figure out a way to beat everyone as quick as possible before they could figure out that my knee was injured. I also had to, do it in such a way that no one knew that my knee was injured. It was fourth grade. How old are you in fourth grade? 8, 9, 10? And I'm hiding a knee injury while I'm competing, or trying to, which is why I knew I had to end matches soon and quick, because these are tournaments, and the way a tournament goes, anyone's ever done one, you face one person, you'll face another person, and then maybe another, and that's how, then you'll hopefully win your bracket through your belt or your level or whatever the case may be. And again, on my record, which is an interesting record, let me tell you, I have one draw on my record, and it haunts me to this day, the one draw. Everything else resulted in a win via knockout or submission. Most of them are submissions. I got a few points in judge awards or whatever, but for the most part it was all points and submissions. But I had one draw on my record, and that was when I was 10. But the moral of the story is I really perfected my chess game, if you would, by watching everyone on the mat and figuring out how I could beat this person as quick as I could, because I had to hide my knee injury, and that's kind of what brings me back to that. But I'm not trying to tell you guys to compete injured. That's not the point of my telling you this. The point of me telling you this is to pay attention to who you're watching at these events. And I'm not saying compete injured. What I'm saying is pay attention to those people, because if you're someone who's in the circuit and you're doing these tournaments, it is only a matter of time until you face one of those other people on the mat somewhere. What I did with my sensei is I would watch every single competitor at all of the other matches in between my own. A lot of kids, when they compete, they're already, done. They're already, kind of changed already. They're already focused on the next match. Me, I'm watching everybody in between those matches, so I can kind of figure out what I have to do to beat this next person. It's being aware of what they have. How fast are they? What weaknesses do they have? In the last, are they also hiding something that I don't know? What are they there for? These are different things that went through my mind. Now, at another time for this show, I will go into kind of what I did to prep for my matches for tournaments, because we're not doing that today. We're not talking about me today. We're trying to talk about these amazing real-life current athletes, not how I was in 1980s and the 90s. We're talking about the real-life beasts who are setting the standard right now, who are living, breathing proof that hard work and dedication still exists, and they do succeed, because everyone I mentioned just did. So, I think that does it for these sports people. I want to also shout out, I don't know if it's going to be sports or entertainment, but it's kind of a both, I guess. Fellow YouTuber, Viking Samurai, for those people who don't know, David Anthony Kozol, I believe his name is. He is a fellow YouTuber, Viking Samurai, I think everyone's heard of here and there. I have a lot of respect for this guy. This guy has a great vibe to him. He's very passionate about martial arts and martial art films. He's very knowledgeable about both. He also is a very personable individual. He has a great work ethic, constantly working hard, and also constantly learning and giving people the benefit of the doubt. Now, I know there are people out there who like to, be the trolls, right? There are a lot of these people out there who like to try to take the air out of the, want to get those 2 seconds of fame to try to knock someone for being better than they are and being successful. And apparently the Viking samurai, who unfortunately suffered an injury not long ago, and first and foremost, I personally want to say to the Viking samurai, I hope you're doing better. I hope your arm's healing well. Again, I know what that's like to get an injury. I've been through many of them in my lifetime. And just like me, just like the Viking samurai, he's going to be back to 100% in no time. He's a very healthy individual. He's a very great mindset. And to anyone out there who thinks that it's like a joke or anything like that, there's no jokes there. I mean, being someone who's competed in levels and being someone who's also done the pro wrestling world and stuff like that, I know what injuries are. I've seen some of the horrific ones in the world. And a lot of these trolls have never even got up off their couch, who can't get out from under their mom's basement, who can't come off to do anything other than sit behind their keyboard and talk about how tough they are and comment about other people. Let me tell you something. The Viking samurai is legit who he is. The Viking samurai is a legitimate martial artist. He's a legitimate action star, in my opinion. And I hope at some point we can get him on this show so we can praise him and I'm giving him praise right now, the Viking samurai, because I'm tired of people who think that they can, talk about someone else when they've done nothing with their own life. Apparently people are, commenting about his injury and making jokes about it. And you know what? I agree with the Viking samurai. What kind of a person are you who relishes at making a joke at someone else's injury? You really must have nothing better to do with your lives than to come up with these things that are only making yourself laugh. You look like a clown when you do those things. And I want to commend the Viking samurai for his incredible willpower not to be as angry as I am. And you know what? I commend him from calling them out when he's had enough of them. Because you know what? He has a right to be upset. Because how dare anyone make a joke about someone else's health and someone else's misfortune? This guy is an incredible athlete, is the Viking samurai. Don't believe this fake hype that all these other people want to talk to you about. The Viking samurai is legit a martial artist, and he hangs around with some of the best martial artists in the world. He also has featured in films and so forth, and he is a knowledgeable individual. A lot of these trolls who, like to talk about what other people are going to do and whatnot, you are really pathetic when you have to hate on someone else's success. And I just wanted to clear that. If you think that the Viking samurai is the only one, let me tell you, I get people who come out of the troll world, come out from under the bridge. Because let's face it, we all know when it comes to trolls, they're all under the bridge, and every once in a while they got to poke their head up out from under the bridge to let people know that the trolls are still here. Well, guess what? Trolls, we know you're still there. We just want you to go back under the bridge so the successful people in the world can just go around our business and continue to succeed like we do. What's even worse, okay? I've seen people hating on my young athlete friends. I think the writer of the Nation Lockwood recently has been going through some people who said some things. Are you guys serious? You're picking on people who... That kid is going... Oh, man. So trolls are not only mouthing off about someone like Viking Samurai who legitimately could just wipe the floor with you if he wanted to, but because he's a real man and because he has real integrity, because he really follows the arts and what it's taught, the self-discipline, because he is clearly a better man than you guys are. He is not going to lower his standards by fighting some nobody for no reason other than the fact that the trolls want to poke their head out and be trolls. And then Ryder Lockwood, of all people are going to mock and make fun of this kid? Let me tell you something. Don't pick on the F4L, because the F4L will not back down. And when you start talking about the Brotherhood and the F4L, you're going to get into a world. The trolls are going to really find out, because this guy right here with the voice is going to send you trolls right back under the bridge. Because I don't put up with bullies. I don't put up with people who mouthing off to people. I don't put up with people who like to hold people back. I heard someone even say, "Oh, it's social media. Get over it." No. Don't get over it. There's no getting over it. How about treat people like a decent human being instead of treating yourself like I don't know what you are, actually. If you're hating on people for their success, I don't know how you can laugh at that, because you have to really observe yourself. What are you doing with your life? If you're so successful at whatever you're doing, why are you taking the time to crap on someone else for being successful? I just wanted to address that, because I saw that not long ago. The people are picking on Ryder Lockwood and mouthing off to the Viking Samurai. Are you kidding me? What's wrong with the world? Well, a lot of things are wrong with the world. But let me tell you something. These are real life people. These are real life athletes. These are real life human beings who are fantastic at who they are. And I would put money on any one of them that if they were ever called to action and you were ever to encounter them, you would be humbled real fast. Because trolls just like to run their mouth. That's it. That's all it is. Especially behind the keyboard. In wrestling, we call those guys keyboard warriors, and the world's full of those. So I just wanted to address that real quick. Sorry for getting off on a tangent, but that also will kind of help us transition to our next realm of things. Well, I guess I can label this person in here too. An old friend of mine. A friend of mine from back in the wrestling days and the anti-bullying days, a fellow bully buster, my buddy Daniel Pewter. You guys remember him? He runs the My Life, My Power program that helps kids fighting against bullies and so forth, and empowers kids to give them skills and so forth. He recently... he got married recently, settled down, having his own family. I wanted to say a quick shout out to Daniel Pewter. Sometimes in life we always get busy in our own little worlds. But I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge Dan Pewter and say congratulations on everything. I'm very happy for you. He's now happily married. He has an amazing family. And I want to say congratulations to my friend Daniel Pewter, who honestly is a decent, amazing human being who has a heart of gold. And I hope that 2024 is kind to him as he deserves it. So big shout out to him, considering he came from the MMA world. He also dominated the wrestling world. And he still, takes time to go to the gym and still works out. So, kudos to Daniel Pewter, and congratulations on everything, brother. Don't think that I haven't forgot about you. Anyway, we're going to switch gears and start shouting out the other groups of people. So, Bertram. All right, Bertram. All right, cool. Bertram's getting a little overzealous with that. Though they're really stepping up their game, though. The Bats here, we have some of the most talented Bat band members of all time, let me tell you. I don't know how many Bats you guys know who can play instruments like ours, but kudos to them. And they can sing. You heard them earlier sing the Army song. So anyway, this group of people we're going to be shouting out is the entertainer kind of people. I kind of break these into categories, believe it or not. Granted, my son was kind of by himself in his own realm, but a lot of our MMA fighters, I want to acknowledge them. But now I want to switch gears into the entertainment kinds of people I'd like to shout out as well. First and foremost, I wanted to again thank my guest this past Friday and Wednesday, technically, as we were graced with the presence of the very talented rising star that is Kane Lowry. Kane is a up-and-coming actor, and he's going to be doing big things in Hollywood and whatnot. And we are very proud of him. We are happy for him. He is someone who I have said before is going to do big things. He has a natural charisma that is far beyond people who have that. You know, charisma is something that not everybody has, and it's also something you can't learn. I wanted to just express this real quick, just to touch on this, because someone asked me about charisma. And why I think it's something that can't be taught. It's because charisma is part of your personality. And you see, some people who, want to get into the entertainment world, want to be actors, right? You can go to workshops and you can take acting lessons and workshops and all those things all you want. And you can learn how to read a script or where to stand for certain elements and how to, display different ranges of emotion and, how to work with those kinds of things. But you can't learn charisma because charisma is not necessarily something you can learn. You either have the charisma or you don't. And I know that might sound unfair. I know it might sound mean, but not everybody has it. But the ones who do have that natural charisma are the ones who are successful in show business. I'll give you some examples of people who have natural charisma. And I think that you will agree, and when you hear their names, and it'll kind of explain those things. Some of those people who have that natural charisma about them, get ready for these names. First and foremost, if you're talking about young actors, let's take Jackson Robert Scott. Natural charisma, natural likability. The camera likes him. He has a natural energy about him. He loves to be on set. Great personality around other people. Works well with others. And this comes alive and he's on all points. That is what that charisma is. Jackson R. Scott has that at a young age. And then if we're going to talk about other people with charisma, let's talk about Dane Cook, my good friend who's also a comedian. Dane Cook has a natural charisma about him. Granted, he is a very funny guy by nature. By nature, he's a funny guy. But his personality is also something that shines through. He has a charisma that is bar none. And being someone who's worked with Dane, not in the film world, by the way. This is going back to when we're both growing up in the streets of Boston days, both cutting our teeth and trying to make our ways through life and whatnot. And I got to say, I'm proud of Dane Cook because he's someone who I've seen rise to stardom like he should because he had that charisma about him, right? The Rock. Okay, that's a great example. The Rock, John Cena. These are people who have a natural charisma. The Rock didn't learn how to become The Rock. The Rock just became The Rock. The Rock was a persona that he obtained in wrestling. He intensified who he was, but because of who he is as a person. He had a natural charisma. Maybe it's in his blood because of the amount of people who were before him. It runs in the family, so to speak. But that's not always transitioned into wrestling. Just because you're born into a wrestling family doesn't necessarily mean you're going to automatically have that it factor. A great example of that, I just mentioned that, The Rock had charisma. John Cena's didn't come from a wrestling family. His dad loves wrestling, but John Cena didn't come from a wrestling family. He had to earn that his own self. He just had his natural charisma about him already. But let's talk about other people like the Von Erichs is probably a great example, especially since Hollywood decides that they want to, throw their names out there like everyone should know who they are. Looking at that family, that's kind of a great example of what we're talking about. Some of the Von Erichs did have the charisma to become a pro wrestler. They had that instant likability. That's something different about them. The way of speaking, the way of being, connecting with the fans. But some of the Von Erichs didn't have that. And they just had that via the Von Erich name, but that wasn't enough. And obviously we know, sadly, about what happens with that. What that pressure does to others. And that's kind of the way it was about that, right? And those are examples in pro wrestling of charisma, natural charisma. You talk about people like, I don't know. I think I've given some pretty good examples right there, but Ryan Reynolds has charisma. It's a comedian's charisma, but it's an instant likability, instantly can adapt. Leonardo DiCaprio, Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman, Adam Sandler, David Spade, Dana Carvey, Michael Myers. Now, granted, I know a lot of people might be, kind of swaying on some of those people, but I got to tell you, I've seen the Sandler and Spade and all those guys in action, and they are legitimately who they are. They are legitimately talented, and they legitimately have charisma. If you're looking at, Saturday Night Live, for example, the most successful people are the ones who have that standout personality. That's charisma. The ones who kind of you don't really remember, that's because they don't have that charisma like everyone else. You can go to acting school, you can go to camps, you can go to workshops, but you can't learn to have charisma. You either have it or you don't. Now we're going to circle back to the person we were just talking about, Kane Lowry. He has natural charisma. And by virtue, I just linked Kane Lowry with all those other people I just mentioned because he has the same skills and he has the same charisma that would take him as far as Adam Sandler, The Rock, and several other people I just mentioned who have that natural charisma. You cannot learn that. Macaulay Culkin, Elijah Wood, some of the biggest child actors out of the 80s, they had natural charisma. Boom. And Macaulay Culkin just got his star on the Walk of Fame. There you go. And let me tell you, he might have a different perspective of the industry now, but don't get it wrong. He still was successful in his own right, and it's because of that natural charisma that he possessed, he was able to do so. And Kane Lowry has that same skill. It's not a skill, it's just a part of his personality, and that's why I think he's going to do big things. So I am actually, I got to tell you, if I had something going on, I may have something going on, I would actually contemplate doing something with Kane if it wasn't for the fact that I know that very soon he's going to be extremely busy taking care and filming things that I know he's going to be big for. So just to throw it out there to all of you big hotshot producers and whatever, if you want a really good talent, I would suggest booking him soon, because if I have my ways, I'm going to bring him and I'm going to make him a co-host on something, because I think I could work with Kane Lowry. So either you do it or I will. And I threw down the gauntlet. See that? I'm going to hire Kane. I'm going to work with Kane Lowry and give him even more skills. Especially after, he came on. We talked a little bit about, his background and how he got to be, wanting to be an actor. And you know what? I love it. I'm in for that. And that alone will make me want to make sure that Kane Lowry succeeds. So there. Anytime I can take a dig at bullies and put an end to bullying and make a statement to bullies, and by empowering someone who was bullied, by giving them the tools or giving them the platform to become stronger and bigger than the bullies, I will do that all day long, because I don't like bullies, but I am always willing to help someone who has been bullied. So there. But regardless of that, he's resilient anyway. He doesn't need to worry about all that, because he's going to be doing big things. So there you go. Speaking of natural charisma and likability and talent, let's talk about Jack and Tim, the lucky ones. Now, here's a fun fact. Jack and Tim are coming to America. Not only are they coming to America, they're going to be touring America. And guess what? They're staying, I believe, for a little while here in America. And even better than that, a lot of people ask me, Jazz, you talk a lot about these people, but would you actually go support all of these people in doing the things that they do? Would you actually see these people fight at their tournaments? Would you actually watch them sing music? Would you actually watch their movies? Are you kidding? I am usually the one who tells them that I've seen their things. I am very much in support of people who follow their goals and dreams. I'm going to give you some examples. I have seen my good friend and someone who I'm incredibly proud of, Elliot Fulham. Elliot Fulham, who maybe people don't know. Elliot and his family, when I first met them, they were vendors at Monster Mania convention, which, by the way, shout out to Dave Hagen and all of my fellow Monster Maniac brothers and sisters, and I look forward to seeing you all again in March. However, back to Elliot. When I first met Elliot's dad, his family, and Elliot himself, they were vendors working at Monster Mania. And I had watched this young man grow into becoming who he is now. And I watched him do the interviews and become more established that way. He had a YouTube thing. He was doing things there. And then the very knowledgeable, smart, intelligent Damien Leone, who, by the way, well, we'll get to Damien Leone. He needs his own little shout-out, because he really did something important for the film industry that I don't even know how, and I don't even know if the film industry understands how important Damien Leone was. But anyway, Elliot was a young man who had a passion for just rock music and life and just taking the bull by the horns. His parents are some of my favorite people in the world. Justin and his mom are two of my favorite people in the world. Elliot's an incredible young man, and I've been proud of him. He went into the acting world, went into the music world, and guess what? Elliot came to my neck of the woods, and I was at his show when he was here. And I was supportive, and I cheered him on and everything else. So for all those people out there who ever wondered, do you support the people you claim to? Not only do I show you I do. Because I was there for Elliot and Jack and Tim, who are coming here in America, coming here all the way from across the ponds. They're doing a show not far from me in my old neck of the woods, and I will be there live again. And guess what? I'm going to be giving them their F4L their icons of the F4L t-shirts in person. So, do I? Yes, I do, and yes, I will. To my rising MMA people, I am going to come see your fights one of these days and see the fireworks for myself. Mark my words. I'll be there. As I say, I will. I mean, Dane Cook is another great example. That's I don't know why I went blank for a second. Dane Cook is a perfect example of that. An individual who I have been friends with for a number of years. Now, granted, in time in life, we always go our different ways. But when the whole Boston Strong thing started, and when all of the other things, growing up in Boston, coming from the area, you kind of get a knack for each other and individuality. And you're always proud of those who go on to do big things. Dane Cook is one of those people who has gone on to do big things, and I'm always proud of him. This year, my family and I sat and watched Dane Cook do what he was meant to do, and that's comedy. And we were incredibly proud of him. I was incredibly proud of him, watching him deliver those jokes, line up to line in his hometown. That is great. That's my second time seeing my friend doing what he was meant to do. The first time was back at the Fleet Center many years ago, or the Garden, as they call it. And I always knew he was going to do big things, and he did. So do I show up? Oh, yes, I do. In my acting friends, I'm there, and I'll send them a thing when I'm there. So there you go. There's my 2 cents on that. Let's go to, because I've been so busy with, life in general, getting a lot of things situated with my return to wrestling. By the way, let me first, before I continue, I want to take a stop here and acknowledge my good friend Sheldon Goldberg. Sheldon Goldberg, who was a friend of mine, who has been a friend of mine for a number of years now. When I knew him, he was a wrestling promoter, and he, more so than a wrestling promoter, he was a wrestling promoter who gave people like myself and other people in the New England area a platform to earn their craft and to work on their skills and to perform and do what we love to do. And there are a lot of guys in New England who owe Sheldon Goldberg a great deal of respect and thanks. I'm someone who is traditional, and I believe in showing those respects to those who help us along the way. Sheldon Goldberg released a book last year, the last fall. What a fantastic book this is. Sheldon's been getting review after review, and they're all accurate. They're all real books. It's a fantastic book. I was fortunate enough to go to his book launch. In fact, see, again, when my friends do big things, when my friends are there, I am there to support them. My friend Sheldon Goldberg, who has done more for me in my younger wrestling career than a lot of other people have, I was there for him when he released his book. And I'm probably going to be there when he releases his next book. If he releases the next book, we'll have to find out about that. But I can promise you this. I also told Sheldon that when I release my book, I'm going to give him my invite as well. Because he, thanks to him and all these other people, I've been re-engaged to finish my own writing. So thank you to Sheldon. By the way, again, you can find The Last Fall on Amazon or on the New England New England Championship Wrestling events. You can find the book there as well. Sheldon Goldberg, fantastic author. This book is fantastic. You don't have to be a wrestling fan to understand the story. What a book, what a story. And if you are in the wrestling world or have any kind of ideas about it, this book is going to hit home more so than anybody else. But you don't have to be a wrestling fan to love this book. And the other part is, you could take this storyline, this plot, and put it any era or any decade, and I think anybody would be able to relate to this. So, incredible book. I do encourage you guys to read The Last Fall by Sheldon Goldberg. Really good guy, and I hope to have him back on here at the F4L Headquarters podcast to talk a little bit more about, the success, and tell him to his face his review, because that's how I roll. But also, because I've been so busy with life and whatnot, I wasn't really paying attention to television shows that are starting up or whatnot. Now, films I've been keeping an eye on because those are things that I can go and quickly get in and get out and going to focus on. I've been doing a lot of film review as you guys listen to here and there. And I will have some more coming up this week on the F4L Headquarters podcast. And something new that I'm going to be doing. So we'll talk about that later. But I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge Seth MacFarlane. I know, what a name to pull out randomly out of all the names I just said. Seth MacFarlane, you guys probably know from maybe Family Guy or American Dad, his work in music, in animated television, or from movies like Ted, for example. Well, I apparently wasn't aware that they were making a Ted TV show until recently. And I've had I have now had the opportunity to watch it, and I'm going to give a full review on the show later, as this is not the moment to review anything. This is about acknowledging people individually for their accomplishments. So, but I wanted to bring Seth MacFarlane's name up because I think that people have to acknowledge the fact that he is incredibly talented for what he does. I think he's maybe a lot misunderstood, and I think he is one of the most underrated talents in Hollywood. It's incredibly hard to be able to do voice work. But not only do voice work, but do multiple things of voice works on multiple levels. Back in the early days of cartoons or animated television, the big names like Mel Blanc was a huge deal. Mel Blanc was, who did the voice of Bugs Bunny and pretty much every Looney Tune that there was, and then some. Mel Blanc did. And then later in life, you get into the guys like Danny Costella from who does several voices on The Simpsons, Homer, and 700 other people he does the voice for. Seth MacFarlane on Family Guy he does 3 or 4 in the same household multiple times, which is incredibly difficult. And then he can sit there and sing a song as great as Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, maybe even better than them, and do it convincingly every single time. I know a lot of people aren't fond of a lot of the Family Guy stuff, but I want to say how important Seth MacFarlane is. And also, I want to point out, Family Guy fans are incredibly passionate people. I can't tell you how many times the fans of Family Guy have brought that show back from the dead, literally. There is a power that the Family Guy has succeeded in obtaining. The power of the people. So that's something, as he said, I think that really comes from the talent that is Seth MacFarlane. I think he may be one of the most underrated talents in Hollywood. Being someone who's from New England, and being someone who I see a lot of his traits, and he likes to interject the New England culture into his projects. And you know what? I thank Seth for that. A lot of people, are quick to want to get away from where they start out and want to quickly get away from their childhood homes and their neighborhoods, and they're quick to move on. Seth MacFarlane, not only does he embrace it, but he includes it in everything. And sometimes, I gotta say, sometimes it hits a little too close to home, but it's done with merit. So I wanted to acknowledge Seth MacFarlane for that, and I will be reviewing the Ted TV series later this week. So stay tuned for that. I've been fortunate enough to listen to Seth MacFarlane speak. I've grown up with Dane Cook, so he's a friend who I've grown up with. So it's a little bit different. But they're two of the funniest people I've ever known of. And I would just, the day whenever they announce that they're going to be working together, my mind would be blown. Because I don't think that the world can handle Dane Cook and Seth MacFarlane working together. I think the world would implode because two of the funniest people in New England. If you add Adam Sandler into that, oh my goodness. By the way, yes, Adam Sandler is another New England guy who is also very proud of his New England roots. So there's that. Pod Meets World. A lot of people who listen to this podcast might be surprised to listen that I listen to other podcasts. I don't know why. That's a surprise. In order to become better, you need to learn from the best. And why wouldn't I listen to other people's podcasts? What is this? Just because I do a podcast, I can't encourage or enjoy other people's? I don't think so. That was accidental, Kevin. That was an accidental Macaulay Culkin line. Sorry. But Pod Meets World is the recap show for Boy Meets World. Stars Danielle Fishel, Ryder Strong, and Will Friedle. I wanted to say that these are three people who I grew up watching every single Friday night. And they helped in a lot of ways. And I think what I'm going to do is... I've listened to this podcast since they started it. And it wasn't until Will Friedle just did the closing moments of the show that I finally was able to get the email address for Pod Meets World. So, be expecting an email from me as I'm going to... number one, I'm excited to share my own thoughts about the podcast I love. But also... anyone who watches Icons of the F4L know that it was me last year who brought these three individuals into the Icons of the F4L. When we talk about pop culture icons and phenomenons, I brought Ryder Strong, Will Friedle, and Danielle Fishel on our show. I built them all, added them all, and anyone who watched our show in 2023 knows that they were a pretty tough team. Danielle Fishel, fierce competitor herself, and Ryder Strong, Will Friedle, multiple-time tag team champions. Not to shake a stick at, very accomplished. I think what I find fascinating is how both grateful they are about their experience, but also how educational it is from me to learn what it's like from their perspective. Because, everyone who is watching at home has a different perspective than the people who are actually in front of the camera building it. Now, I know some of the people that I have on my shows here and there are, like, for example, Kane Lowry, who would love to be on a television show, love to be on a film. Actually, he said he wanted to be on a television show. And what he said was, the consistency, because you have that same cast, you have a good way to build on that, unless you are unfortunate to have not such a great cast. Now, Boy Meets World had a reputation for having a very welcoming and dedicated fan base and a dedicated set life. A lot of people who had been to the Boy Meets World set had rave reviews about being on set. So, today's audience, I just stopped for a moment because I was envisioning if in the world of reboots and so forth, I know that they did the Girl Meets World show on Disney Channel, and I think that was mixed reaction. But you got to understand that Boy Meets World was a pop culture phenomenon in the 90s. It was part of something that was tradition. back to TGIF days when you had to be what you had in order to find out what zany antics that Corey and Sean would get into that week. You had to tune in on Fridays to find out. And would he or would he not get together with Topanga? Would she or would she not move to Pittsburgh? And when will Eric Matthews get the respect he deserves? Well, in order to get the answers to any of those questions, you had to tune in on Fridays I think their show started at 8, if I remember correctly. See, I learned how to tell television by what came on. The reason I learned how to tell time was because of television. I was a younger kid back then, and I knew I kind of would learn. I associated things like learning what time television shows came on with time. I also kind of figure out how long a half an hour is versus an hour, because things like Alf, which was my favorite television show when I was growing up, would come on. It was a half an hour show. It came on at 8 o'clock on Mondays, and immediately following that was Valerie's Family, before it was rebranded into the Hogan's Family, starring Sandy Duncan, and a very young Jason Bateman would start on that show. Yeah, I'm a TV geek. I often wonder, those people who know I work at a lot of conventions and stuff like that, I'm often wondering if I was to, or when I should say, I get to chat with these people and thank them in person for what they do. I'm often wondering what the conversation between Will Friedle and I would be, because it sounds like he and I are both encyclopedias for classic television. And I would love to have a meeting of the minds for those things. I gotta say, he has one up on me. He'll watch MASH. I'm not a big MASH guy. I do know about it. Not one of my favorites. I did like F Troop and several of those shows that he did enjoy. So, I always kind of had a soft spot for Eric anyway. Being an older brother and being in the situations that Corey would often get into, I thought that Eric was sort of one of those underrated actors and one of those underrated characters. My favorite episode has already passed, and it was something that I can relate to, and I've been there and I've done that, and actually it's kind of, to be honest with you, it's kind of my moniker for how my life was, or how I would treat others and how I would go forth with life. The episode was where Corey, I think it was his first day at school, he meets the bully, Harley Kiner, and that's when he would meet the bullies, and he was supposed to have a fight with the bully, and Corey at one point asked his brother for help, and his brother was like, "Oh no, I'm not getting involved with this. You're my brother. I don't want to know you." I can understand what that's like. I have 3 siblings, and you want to have your space when they're close to you like that. But in the same sense, there comes a time when you're the older brother and you can't let things happen under your watch, regardless how you feel about your status or whatnot. And my favorite episode was where the bully situation, and Eric would jump in just before the bully was supposed to fight Corey, and I was always taken back by that episode, and it kind of showed me kind of how it should be. You should interject if you need to, and that's kind of what I took away from that. So, and I also want to point out that Will Friedle comes from as another New England guy, and us New England guys got to stick together. I don't know where they get this, dune buggies and carriages thing from, because let me tell you, Connecticut is not the most rural area. I've been through Connecticut multiple times, and most of New England, we have paved roads now, so I don't know where Hollywood seems to think that we are these Amish type people, but whatever. No, but all fairness, I want to say publicly that I know that Will Friedle will never hear this because he doesn't do social media, which, by the way, a lot of respect for him for that. But if anybody listens who knows Will Friedle, let him know that his fellow New England brother over here is very proud of how he represents New England, and he is an incredible human being. Anyway, as all of them are. Now, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge another friend of mine. And in fact, we mentioned Monster Mania. And I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge someone who recently just celebrated the anniversary. And I want to acknowledge someone real quick. And also wanted to tell people about Donna Jean's Coffee House of Horror, which is another podcast. Donna Jean is one of my Monster Mania sisters. Well, I'm a brother, obviously, but she's one of my Monster Maniac family members. She works with me at Monster Mania, and she is a beacon of life. She is an absolute national treasure. I'm going to say that. She is a delightful human being, has a heart of gold. In all honesty, whenever she is around the area, whenever she is a part of the Monster Mania team, she, her warmth as a human being is bar none. And her passion for both life and for pop culture, horror films, and even cats is something extraordinary. She's an incredible woman who has such an important message and has led such an incredible life. She's been a guest on the show. Might have to try to get her back in here to collaborate again. But I wanted to say that Donna Jean is one of my favorite people. I mean, I am blessed to work with some of the best people at Monster Mania anyway. They are all my brothers and my sisters. But Donna Jean, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge for the things that she's had to overcome and the person that she is. It's just an incredible human being. And I do encourage people to check out Donna Jean's Coffee House of Horror wherever you listen to your podcast, because she has better guests than me even. But she is a fantastic human being. And it's just, I have great guests too, but she is into that horror realm. I've had a few people here and there, but for the most part, she is a fantastic human being, so it makes a lot of sense. So I wanted to acknowledge her and say how much we are grateful to have her with us and how important she is to our team, and tell her we look forward to seeing you in March. Safe travels there. Speaking of Monster Mania, we are going to flip back into the Monster Mania realm, and this is how everyone kind of blends in together. Damien Leone, I just mentioned him briefly earlier. And the reason why Damien Leone is important to filmmakers, specifically independent filmmakers, is because he has done something revolutionary that I'm not sure that everyone's even acknowledged. And if they haven't, they should. Damien Leone, who you guys might know now from the Terrifier series, Terrifier 2, and going forward, who knows what else. But what's important to remember is the Terrifier 2 was the very first successful fan-supported project. And they worked with what they could get people at these conventions and so forth. They were so committed and dedicated. I remember going and working the Monster Mania, and they would be there to try to get funding for this thing, and people would contribute and whatnot. And Terrifier 2 came to be, and of course, it had a tremendous cast. David Howard Thornton as Art the Clown. he would rival Pennywise any day of the week. And quite frankly, in the world of dream matches, if you would, I don't know if Pennywise would even want to tangle with Art the Clown. He introduced the world more so to Art the Clown, and that already has made an impact on pop culture. Part 2 of the Terrifier series, we are introduced to the Pale Girl, and we're introduced to Sienna, the real-life Wonder Woman of the era, the real-life She-Ra, if you would, the Princess of Power. Laura Lavera, who plays Sienna, she is an incredibly tough individual, a fellow MMA star, by the way. She's competed in MMA. She's tough as nails. And she is exactly what girls need to... I think she's exactly what the girls need as a role model currently, to show that they don't have to be set into any kind of a box or a standard, and to show that they can be just as tough, just as BA, if you would, as the guys. Because let me tell you, she didn't put up with a lot of what Art the Clown did. She kept on fighting and showed that integral fortitude and whatnot. And of course, it would also give our friend Elliot Fulham his first opportunity, another opportunity to grow as an actor as well. And just the overall presentation of Terrifier 2 was so important when it hit the theaters and it had all that hype behind it, that people were so surprised by what all of these people put together, the blood, the sweat, the tears that went into putting this production together. All of the talents who took part in that film are all fantastically talented individuals. Even like the people who you don't pay attention to as much, or the people who you don't think is such a big deal at the time. They are all incredibly talented people. I personally, let's look at Wesley Holloway, who was if you guys don't know who Wesley Holloway is, he was in Terrifier 2, he was the kid in the cereal scene, and during that song that gets caught in my brain, I tell you, I'm trying not to remember the song because it will get stuck in my head, and then I can't get rid of it again. He's, by the way, someone we're trying to also bring him here, too, eventually. But Wesley Holloway is a very talented individual in his own right, and he's going to go and springboard into the next presentation by that production company. It makes sense, because Damien Leone and his group are kind of a tight-knit family kind of a group. I've seen it, and that's how you want your sets to be. Damien Leone is important because not only does he show that the fans can help you succeed in your goals and dreams, but also it works because he's done it successfully. And I wanted to commend him for that, again, for everything he's done for the film world. Him and the entire team that brought the Terrifier 2 to the world, they're going to bring Terrifier 3 in now. And they're going to have a spin-off called Stream. They're going to have something else called Stream coming out soon. You know what? I'm in. Full force. I will always support Damien Leone and his group, because these are the people who help to inspire future filmmakers and people who have a dream to inspire to do the same thing. And guess what else? They open the door to making that possible by doing this. Before making a film, you would have to go to a producer, to a studio, and beg them for money and hope that something would bite. What Damien Leone did is he turned to the fan base, and the fans said yes. The movie was successful, and that right there is a stroke of genius. So thank you, Damien Leone, as a filmmaker, for giving me hope that things can happen. There you go. Who else did I have on this list? Philip Ricardo Jr., the natural bodybuilding champion. Recently, I believe he just had an anniversary and several other birthdays. And you know what's incredible of Phil Ricardo Jr. is that he's very much a family man, but he is also a genuine human being, and he's still built like a brick house, and it's all 100% natural, folks. It goes to show you hard work, dedication, discipline is how you succeed in life. You don't need anything fancy to become successful. Philip Ricardo Jr. is a multiple-time bodybuilding champion, natural bodybuilding champion, and he has also trained some of the best. And those who worked with Philip go on to do bigger and better, do even bigger things. And I can understand how that is. And I want to commend Philip for all he does and recognize him for his tireless efforts to raise awareness for the first of all, the natural bodybuilding thing. I think there's far too many people out there in the world who are abusing substances to try to make themselves bigger and better than they think they are or want to be. And there's way, way, way too many people in the world who are sitting there taking pictures in front of their mirrors and whatever, just with no drive or whatever else. And Philip Ricardo Jr. has found a way to not only succeed at his goal, but be successful and also train some of those people who legitimately are who they say they are in a safe way. So there you go. Looking over the notes. I want to recognize my fellow social media friend, our friend from Instagram. He was on my podcast also not long ago, Drake Larson. He's a TikTok and Instagram influencer, as you would say. Hoping someday to maybe be a singer or whatnot. And he is a very talented young man, and he has great work ethic and stuff like that. And we added him to our show, and on our show so far, he's doing pretty decently for those people who've watched. And Drake is an incredible individual in general. I think the problem that he runs into is a lot of people, these trolls that I mentioned earlier, they just are detrimental to, growth. They're like fungus, and they weigh people down. I think that Drake is someone who is an individual who is worth investing time in, investing to understand. He's a very sociable individual. He likes to communicate with people. So you can't go wrong with following Drake Boy on, whatever. I think that's his tag on Instagram, Drake Boy. And TikTok is over there as well. Because you know what? In life, sometimes we all have goals and dreams, and he has goals and things. And I think he's going to achieve them because he's got a great head on his shoulders. And he's very intelligent, folks. He's not what people want to think he is. A lot of people think these social media people maybe aren't smart or they don't have intelligence. That's not true. It takes a lot of smarts, a lot of time, a lot of effort to set these things up, to know how to work these things. Not only is he smart, he's also talented. He can do those dances, and he's up and he knows how to use those filters and everything else. I wish I could do half the things that these young people can do. And Drake Larson has that down pat. So shout outs to my friend Drake. I hope he's doing good, and he's a fantastic young man, and I think he's going to do big things. I want to acknowledge Michael Fishman, who I believe is going to have a podcast. Or already started his podcast. I remember he was thinking about doing a podcast. I said, absolutely should do one. Way back not long ago, during the whole 2020s, Michael Fishman was doing Monday nights. He would have Mental Health Awareness Day, and a lot of us would join in on his lives and take time and effort. And when I say Michael Fishman is a real-life individual, he is a real-life individual. He may be a Hollywood actor, director, producer, or whatnot, but he is so much more than that, much like all these other people are. But Michael Fishman is also an incredible father, incredible human being. He has led an incredible life. He has both overcome adversity, continues to do so, and we have much in common, Michael and I. We have a very similar past. He has had the luxury of working with some very talented people. I have the luxury of meeting several individuals like that and getting to know them. And Michael Fishman is a genuine human being who has a heart of gold. He's also another individual who also has helped relight the fire that is in me. And I hope that in 2024 that Michael Fishman and a lot of these other people who I mentioned can actually see me do what I do best when I return to pro wrestling very soon. By the way, stick around for announcements coming soon when I will be returning officially to action and when you can see the Fitness Center live coming to a city near you. Shouted everybody out for the most part, I think. Elijah Furton. You know what, Bertram, why don't you play that other music, and then what I'll do is I'll just go through them one more time. You were working on that new song, right, Bertram? Go ahead, play that for us. All right. All right. Well done, Bertram. Thank you. Quite Bertram and his bat band, ladies and gentlemen, have learned how to play the bagpipes now. I better watch out. People are going to want to take my bats as their new band. Ozzy, stay away from my band. Anyway, let's get back to our recap of everyone who we shouted out tonight. Sean Awesome, my son. Ryder the Nation Lockwood. Jesse the Untamed Weller Jr. Jake the Snake LeBlanc. I should probably include his dad also, who is a very incredible dad who inspires his son. And they work well together, and they're both intense, and they both have the same work ethic. Shout out to him as well. Add on. Actor Kane Lowry. Jack and Tim, the lucky ones. Seth MacFarlane, multiple things. Dane Cook, the Viking Samurai. Dmitry Chernikov, the Lionheart. Pod Meets World, Danielle Fishel, Ryder Strong, Will Friedle. Donna Jean Phillips of Donna Jean's Coffee House. Again, go check her out. Also, go check out Pod Meets World as well. Damian Leone. The Redheaded Terror, Anthony Demoweek. Action Jackson Baker. Philip Ricardo Jr. Isaiah the Natural Trainer. Noah the Nightmare Trindle. Drake Larson. Sheldon Goldberg. Daniel Pewter, Michael Fishman, and Big E Elijah Furton. Some of the most incredible human beings you'll ever meet, ladies and gentlemen. And I do encourage you guys to go check them all out on their various platforms and so forth. These are people, some of them have been here, some of them have not. Many of them will, I'm sure. And I want to say, people ask me, why do I acknowledge other people? Why do I give them shout-outs? And especially how many of them are actually going to either care or listen or whatnot. And sometimes for me, it's not about who hears it now. It's about who's going to hear it later and the impact these things can have. And like I said, sometimes people need to hear what impact and what cool things they're doing for people. I like to acknowledge those people. And I like to support them. So there you go. I believe in people achieving their goals and dreams because I am living proof of that. And the people who I mentioned are people who work hard, train hard, and commit to doing their goals and dreams and whatnot. And all honesty, these people inspire and they command respect because they've earned it. I am proud of them all. I am happy to see them all grow and do incredible things. And I hope that 2024 is going to be successful for everybody. I also hope that the world realizes that the world needs more peace and less hatred, less bullying. We don't need bullies at all. But we need more understanding and general respect with one another. Trolls should go back under the bridge where they belong. Bullies have no place with anybody else. I encourage people to, when you see someone being bullied or you see something that you don't feel right about, I encourage you to say something. Don't be the person to wait for someone else to take action if you know it's something wrong. Your impact, your involvement could be the definition and could result in a matter of what happens going forward. I have been in countless situations where I've had to put myself in scenarios where I wasn't involved with it. And I want to tell you this story real quick because we're getting ready to wrap up and I like to set the mood. So, Bertram, why don't you set us up for our last little bit here? Bertram. Thank you, Bertram. Fantastic job, everybody. I bet you guys didn't know, first and foremost, that Bertram and his band could sing in English. Well, listen, dreams come true. Bats as well. So there you go. Anyway, if I could be serious for a moment, which I usually am, I wanted to, share this story with you guys that I was, that I think it would be important for other people to understand. Hopefully people understand. Those people who don't know, I have a job currently, and it's not going away anytime soon. This is kind of what I do for the most part now. A lot of schools in the area will have me come and do public lectures and speakings to the students about bullying and how to prevent it and so forth. I do this at schools, day camps, day programs, sometimes workshops, and sometimes it's not just kids. Kids, teens, even young adults, colleges. I've spoken pretty much everywhere. I've even spoken to parents. We've had times where only parents have come in, and it's not kids. But I wanted to tell you about this recently just happened, just before Christmas. I haven't talked about it yet, but I thought it was important to share. For those people who know also, whenever someone tells me something in confidence, I always keep those things to myself. Whenever someone says something one-on-one, I don't just spulge that to anybody. But when it comes to like a Q&A that I have to answer a question, it depends on what the question is and whatnot, then I will address it here. And I have a common rule when I do Q&As. First and foremost, there are no guidelines except for make sure you want to hear the answer. If you ask a question, make sure you want to hear the answer. That's quite frankly that simple. Because I'm going to give you my best answer. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to tell you I don't know the answer, but I'm going to give you a direction of where you can find the answer yourself. However, this story goes back to just before Christmas, and I was doing a school lecture, and when it got to the Q&A session, after I got done talking about bullying, this young man asked me, if I have never been bullied myself, which is something I usually tell people, which is true, if I was never bullied myself, why did I take the need and why should I stick my nose into things that have nothing to do with me? So his question, which was valid question, so if I had said I'd never been bullied, why am I so passionate about wanting to end bullying? And then also when watching the bullying, why would I get myself involved with it when it has nothing to do with me? Now, when the kid asked this question, there were a lot of oohs and so forth. I guess he thought it was going to be funny, or maybe it was going to stump me or something. But instead, I gave him the answer. I gave him a good one. Oh, at least I thought I did. So I'm going to share that answer with you guys. Why, if I was never bullied myself, did I get involved with trying to end bullying? And why would I get myself involved with things that had nothing to do with me? Well, I guess first and foremost, we have to look at where I come from and who my mother was, and who I am as a person, individually. So my mother is someone who every time she saw something that wasn't right, she would put herself in action. She didn't think twice about it. She just did it. A couple of examples of this. 1986. Actually, no, it was 1987. It was 1987. It was about a week or two after Christmas. Yeah, so a week or two after Christmas, 1987. We lost our house in a house fire. I was at my aunt and uncle's house over the weekend. And my mother, who was home with my brothers and my sister, I'm the oldest of four. My mother was at home, and the kids just went, she just put the kids down to bed. She came downstairs, and she saw that there was fire. And 3 times she went into a burning building, was completely engulfed in flames. At one point, having her hair caught on fire to rescue her 3 kids, meaning my brothers and my sister. My sister and my brother had asthma, my youngest brother. So she knew enough to cover their faces with a cloth, not a cloth, but a wet cloth, to make sure that the smoke wouldn't get in their lungs. 3 times she saved my brothers and my sister, because there was 3 of them. She got them outside. A neighbor would send them. They would try to prevent her from going back in. The police officer showed up, tried to prevent her from going in. And she walked right past him and said, "No one's going to do this but me." And putting herself at risk, she did what she thought was right. And if she didn't do that, I don't know if my brothers and my sister would be here today. Then there was me. Years later, there are 2 incidences that come to mind for me. One was in 2001. I was working for a day program. I've told this story. I was working for a day program for adults with mental illness. I was their social program coordinator. I was 21 years old. And the company asked me in the summer of that year to go to a international conference where a lot of people from our industry were going to get together to talk and compare notes. People from all over the world. We're going to go to Chattanooga, Tennessee in October of 2021. And I was honored that they asked me to be one of the presenters and to represent the company and represent and speak on what it's like to work with people and do what I do. And of course I agreed, so why not? They took care of everything, and why not? And then September 11th happened. And everyone knows what happened on September 11th, 2001. What you may or may not remember is what happened after that, and how many people kind of put everything on hold, and how many people were frozen in fear. How many people, didn't want to fly, didn't want to do things. So immediately after 9/11, they asked all of us who wanted to continue to go. And other people were still going to come to this conference. Flights started up again, and things were getting back to, quote, normal. And I said, I'm going to still honor my commitment. I'm still going to show up. I'm still going to do my presentation, and I'm still going to attend, because it's the right thing to do. I'm not going to let terrorists or bad people prevent me from doing what's right in the world. Just like I would never let some bully pick on someone weaker than me while I'm watching it, because it's not the right thing to do. So I went to Chattanooga in October of 2001. Originally, they had asked 10 of us, there was like 8 or 10 of us they asked. I don't remember exactly the amount of other people. But in the end, it was only 2 of us who went to represent our company. 2 represented our own company in the industry. Everyone else canceled or didn't feel comfortable. I wasn't going to be bullied, and I wasn't going to not show up just because, whatever. And at that conference, around that conference, I had been working on a new song that I was writing the lyrics to. That song was called The Good Old Boy, or The Misunderstood Boy, as I would rename it. And, the conference was phenomenal. People from all over the world came to express and talk about, all the various different ways that they deal with various things in their own countries and their own clubhouses. People, Australia, Canada, UK, Europe, Russia, Scotland, Switzerland, Greenland, Mexico, all over the United States. Really a learning and cultural experience. Eye-opening. And on the last day, they had an open mic where everyone could talk about what the weekend meant, what that week meant, because it was a whole week conference. And I remember that this is the moment I decided I was going to unveil this song, The Good Old Boy. I was going to perform this song live during that open mic. And I didn't have my piano, which, by the way, that's the instrument I play. I can play anything with keys. But I didn't have one, which meant I had to sing this thing a cappella. So I stood in front of people from all over the world. Canada, Australia, all over Europe, Mexico, all over the United States. You name it, they were there. And there was me at 21 years old, a month after 9/11, singing the Misunderstood Boy, or the Good Old Boy, in front of all of these people. 500 of them, to be exact. And when I was done performing this song, I got to see a standing ovation. They all stood in applause. And at that moment, everyone who tried to prevent me from going to this trip, which, by the way, my family was very much dead set against me going because they were feared that something was going to happen. Something happened, all right. I was reminded that courage is something that I am born with. My mother was someone who was afraid of me going, but in the same sense, my mother is also someone who had incredible courage and put herself at risk when no one else would. That song, by the way, I would go on to redo when I got out of film school and would remaster into a screenplay for my first film. There you go. Fun trivia there. However, in 2013, I believe it was, I found myself in another situation. I was working for that same day program, and we were in Boston at an event that happens every year. Usually no issues. We bring in support the athletes and so forth when some tragedy happened. After I made sure everyone in our group was safe, I ran towards where it went off to make sure and see if I could help anybody. And I tried to help as many as I could. And that's the kind of person who I am. So I told both of these stories to that young man, and I said to him, the moral of this story is, how many times can you sit and watch something that you know is wrong and not do something about it? Because when you don't, you're just allowing it to happen. And when you're just allowing it to happen, you're contributing to the issue. Now, bullying is much different than, well, maybe not. It depends on how you look at it. From a victim's perspective, a bully is a terror. They're nightmare-inducing to some kids. And, yeah, I have never been bullied. No one's picked on me because I won't allow them to bully me or pick on me. And I know that might sound crass or might sound like I'm trying to be a tough guy, but that's not the case. I have self-confidence, and I know that I can stand. I have no problem standing up for myself, but I also know that there are kids who sometimes don't have the ability to stand up for themselves. Now, as you guys also know from here, this podcast, I've been training in martial arts since I was 4 years old. And by the time I got to first grade, I've already competed in, 3 tournaments? Well, wait a minute, more than 3. Because it used to be almost every weekend or every other weekend there was a tournament, once a month. And it was usually once a month there was a tournament somewhere back then. And that started when I was 5, the tournaments. So I could take care of myself. But the issue is, and this is still an issue, that people will see something directly in front of them and they know it is wrong. They'll see someone getting picked on and they know it's not supposed to happen. They may feel the need, or they may say, hey, listen, this is going too far. Something needs to be done. But the difference between myself and everybody else is I'm the one who will not hesitate to get up and do something about it. Because if you're in a scenario where there is nothing else, no one else is going to do anything, then you need to be that person. And the young man looked at me and said, well, why would you get involved, though, if it had nothing to do with you? And I said, because it does have something to do with me. Because if I am in the same room with all these people, and they are bullying the same person, like they are, in front of me, and I choose not to do anything about it, then that definitely involves me, because I let myself down and I witnessed this awful thing in front of me. That is involving me. By putting these antics on and by being a bully and causing attention, you have in fact involved me, because you did it in front of me. And you expected me to do nothing about it. That's what a bully thinks anyway. No one else is going to say anything or do anything because they prey on the weak. And I know that sometimes in schools and life and so forth, some people have a hard time finding the words to stand up for themselves. Some people have a hard time physically or emotionally or verbally standing their ground. But that's why I was glad to be that person who could. Now, I want to point out that, yeah, I might have gotten involved many a times in those scenarios. Not all of them ended in violence. Not all of them ended with me fighting. Because once I acknowledged the fact what they are and drew attention to who they were, what they are, and what they were doing, usually the bully would stop doing so and it would stop. Because I took away their power. Their power is their ability to feel like they're bigger and stronger and more powerful than they think they are. And when people laugh at the jokes or they're engaging these antics, then they're feeding that fire. But me, I would take away that power by ripping them verbally aside and acknowledging the fact that they're gutless cowards for picking on people who they know will know nothing about it. And when you cut someone down like that, and when you point out their flaws, and when you point out the reasons why what they're doing is ridiculous, they lose their power as a bully. And they stop. They don't have the power anymore. So, the long-term short story is, why did I get involved? Because someone had to. And when it's going on in front of me, you invited me to be part of this. The bully invited me to be in the scenario. And when I said that, the young man understood that, because this is something that I'm sure he's seen. And even today, I see this happen a lot. I don't quite understand why. Now, today, everyone has cell phones and whatnot. And today's impulse, when you see someone getting bullied, is to pull out the phone and record the incident. Now, I want to point out, I understand that everyone might not be able to physically get involved in a scenario. And I do encourage people to also know what you can and cannot do. Accept the fact of who you are. Don't try to make yourself bigger than you are, and don't put yourself in a situation if you can't take care of yourself or you can't get out of the scenario limited issue. Because when you do, that's where things can go dicey. I'm fortunate that I have tremendous self-control and also self-discipline, but also I have great self-confidence. The reason I got that self-confidence is because of the time I am on the mat or on a ring or whatnot. That confidence is what led me to success and why I got to do everything that I did. Because today, the impulse is to record the incident rather than, call someone for help if you can't do something about it. If you yourself can't get yourself physically involved, instead of pulling out your phone and recording the incident, pick up the phone and call someone who you know can do something about the scenario. Because there's always a solution to every problem. So, just remember that, folks. You always have control over every scenario. And when you choose to pull out a phone and record the incident, you're adding to the issue, not supporting it. Think twice. All right, folks, this has been a long one. I want to say thank you to everyone for continuing to inspire, not just me, but everyone else, and also continuing to succeed in your own goals. And be proud of yourselves, because it's you guys who achieve these goals and these dreams. Your hard work, your dedication, your ethic is what got you all of your dreams and your accomplishments. I'm proud of you guys all. You guys are going to do great things in life. Continue it up. And may all your dreams come true, everyone. I am the F4L icon. Peace from the F4L Headquarters podcast. Guys, play the music. Thank you, everyone. Peace from the F4L Headquarters podcast.